before I start, just want to make this comment. The various influences. A human being is extremely complex, extremely great and extremely complex, to the extent that the Alter Rebbe says, to put it very simply, he has two souls. Can you imagine that? What can be more complex than that?
Maybe three souls.
Three souls, two souls at different levels of the soul. And you need really to employ all the wisdom that you can muster to figure out, where is this message come from, and this message, and why it's coming this way, and what are the twists and turns and so forth. There is a posik in Tanakh. There's a posik in Tanakh. Tanakh is the most straightforward type of thing. Tanakh says like this, that I don't want to say that it's like a musa to the Jewish people, but just as an individual, that it's conceivable that a person knows what is good. Clearly knows what is good. And he knows not only what is good, and he knows that if he should go and attend an exposition of Torah, or something of that nature along these things, he knows it's good, and he knows he will be influenced, and he'll be drawn in. He knows it. And for somehow there is another mind, another quiet voice behind that. This is the confusion that says to him, don't go, you're going to be influenced, you're going to become a better person. This is how attentive, how careful we have to be with our thinking process. Don't go lest you be influenced. So what's going to be you're going to be a better person. So then, when you want to do something wrong, it'll be difficult for you. You won't be able to do it. You'll be a better person. As a matter of fact, I have, I meet a lot of people. I have actually now, I'm dealing with someone in Yemen. I'm meeting with him more than once a week. Very learned, very smart kid. Somehow he got involved in whatever it is. And he clearly says, this is right and this is great. I can't give it all up. I'm afraid. Not because of any rational reason. We'll break through it. I'm sure about it. I'm just saying, this is how our mind works, and we can't take it on, straight out. We have to maneuver around it. But one thing is, don't protect yourself against the good medicine. That's one thing that is very important. If it doesn't work immediately, okay, but if we refuse to take it, then we are doing a terrible disservice to ourselves. All right. Let's get into today's Parsha. You all learned, I'm sure, the part that we're up to. And we are going to, the Parshas Vayechi, Yankiv. There's much to say on every word in this Parsha. It's a short Parsha, but it's well loaded. Right at the beginning of the Parsha, which we already learned this year, is where Yosef comes to Yaakov with his two sons, Ephraim and Menachem, for a blessing. And there we see an interesting contrast between two views of Ephraim and Menachem. How Yosef deals with Ephraim and Menachem, or Menachem and Ephraim. From Yosef's perspective, it's Menachem and Ephraim. Menachem is the oldest, is a B'chor. And therefore Menachem should be recognized as a B'chor and should be given the prime blessing, the prime bracha. That's what a B'chor is. And Yaakov, amazingly enough, crisscrosses his hands. In other words, it's not just a simple extension of the hands, and it happened to be that Ephraim was there. No, he's crisscrossed his hands to put his right hand on Ephraim and his left hand on Menachem. And this is so surprises Yosef, a tzaddik, who actually protests to his father Yaakov and says, Yaakov, no, that's not the way it should be. That's not the way it's supposed to be. What do you want to do? And Yaakov says, my son, I know what I'm doing. And what does Yaakov say? Essentially, they're both great. They're both great. Menachem is also great. Ephraim is great. Menachem is also great. But there is some special quality in Ephraim that really, that's the quality that I'm addressing to. I'm not canceling out the value of, or the standing of Menachem, but I'm addressing myself specifically to some quality of Ephraim, and therefore I'm giving him priority. So as you can imagine, the Rabbi did not leave this profound episode unexplained, and he gave us a tremendous insight as to what was going on over here. And the Rabbi explains on the basis of the following. Menachem and Ephraim were both born in Mitzrayim. Like Yaakov himself says, that your two sons that were born in Mitzrayim prior to my coming here, they are going to be like my sons, one of the tribes. They were both born in Mitzrayim. And thus they represent both the challenge of being in Mitzrayim, away from Yaakov, alone in this Egyptian spiritual decadence. And they had to grow up in this state on their own. And but they each represent a different level and different means by which this Mitzrayim element is dealt with. In naming Menachem and Ephraim, the Torah says that when Yosef named Menachem and Ephraim, he attached a reason to it. In other words, the names expressed some of his experiences, some of his concerns. Menachem, he said, is to remind himself and to commemorate the fact that Dashani Elokim Eskol Amoli Veskol Beisovi. That Hashem, Nashani, had torn me away from my home, and I could have forgotten about my home, my father's house. And Menachem, through Menachem, this will give a reminder. I should remember. What should I remember? That I'm here in Mitzrayim. I don't really belong here. I have a house, a father, and a household, and a family, and a completely different principles of life than here in Mitzrayim. Menashe is a living testimonial to this.
How is it?
Huh?
How is it? How is it a son?
Nashani Elikim. In other words, huh?
Just saying the name is going to remind him?
Right. No, Nashani, Menashe means he tore me away from my house. Nashani, he tore me away from my house. What does this mean? He tore me from my father's house. He's not giving thanks for being torn away from his father's house. The message in this is that I'm here in Mitzrayim, and I am here in Mitzrayim pretty comfortable, right? I'm top of the world. Remember, you are actually torn away from where you're supposed to be. This is not where you're supposed to be. And Menashe is that which reminds him that I'm here, not where I'm supposed to be. I was really torn away from where I'm supposed to be. Nashani Elikim Meskol Amoli. Meskol Beisovi. Hashem tore me away from Beisovi. Where do I really belong is in Beisovi. But Hashem tore me away from there for whatever reasons that Hashem had. But I have to remember, my duty is to remember who I really am and where I belong. And that's the name of Menashe. Then came the second son, and him he named Ephraim. And Ephraim, it represents, Yosef says, Shifrani Elikim Be'eretz Onyi, that Hashem made me fruitful, had made me great in the land of my pain, the land of my suffering. Now, it's while I'm in Mitzrayim, where I don't belong, and yet I was so blessed and I was so successful. Here too, we have to understand what the implication of this is. Just like Menashe, Hashem made me forget, told me away from my father's house. The message over there is that I should remember my father's house. I should remember that this is not the natural state where I should be, where I have to be. I'm torn away from where I have to be. The same thing Ephraim. Ephraim is saying that this is Eretz Oni. This is the land of my pain. This is the land of pain. This is the land of suffering. This is not where I belong. And yet, in this circumstance, I can actually overcome all the difficulties. Not only overcome all this the difficulty, I shouldn't get lost there, but actually, Hifrani, I will produce fruit. I will grow as a result of this exile. That's basically the message of Ephraim. And the Rabbi explains in simple terms, Menashe, the message of Ephraim, Menashe, and Ephraim is, Menashe means just the strength that the neshama has to keep to its own, not to get lost, not to forget where it belongs, no matter where it is. Ephraim is an additional strength that not only he will remember who he is, but he will actually, as a result of this exile, he will actually benefit. He will actually grow as a result of the exile, as a result of the challenges. This is something which is, I don't think is new as a concept to us. Everybody learns Exodus all the time, that Yisroin ha'oir mitoy ha'choshech. I don't know if you know the exact words, but the concept I'm sure you were exposed to. Yisroin ha'oir mitoy ha'choshech. That where do you identify and you recognize the supremacy of light, the super aspect of light, when it comes from the darkness? Mitoy ha'choshech. Yes. Yisroin min ha'choshech. That's right. You're right. The pasuk says Yisroel min ha'choshech, And Hasidus explains that it means from the Choshech itself, not greater than Choshech, but from the Choshech itself comes the Yisro in Hoyer.
So that basically means that you can make darkness actually produce light. Light burns because of darkness?
It means that, but that is only half the story. What this is saying is that light that comes from darkness is greater, shows its greatness more than light that comes in a natural way. This is the Yisro Mehoyer Mitoy HaChoshech.
Now, how would one ignite such a light?
Okay, that's what we're going to discuss a little bit. First, I want to discuss the principle itself. It's a principle that's discussed in Chassidus a lot. Like everything in Chassidus, in Maimorim, it tells you the reality, and then it expects us with our own intelligence to understand what this is about. Where is the supremacy? How is that actually happen? And what is so superior about coming from darkness?
What do you mean? What do we understand?
What is so advantageous, so great about light coming from darkness? What's wrong with light coming from light? It's light. So, in our world and in our experience, if we focus in carefully, we can readily understand the principle in this. There is an interesting deen, there's a halach. It says an interesting thing. It says like this, that it says, the Gemara says, "Ein mekablim geirim b'mei shloima." In the days of Shloima HaMelech, we didn't accept any geirim. You know what a geir is? A geir is a convert. So, convert in general, we are careful with converts. They should be honest. They should be true through and through. But ultimately, if he proves himself to be true, we accept the converts. And not only we accept, but we're supposed to give him support. And the Torah says, watch out, you shouldn't, Chas v'sholem, hurt him. But b'mei Shloimeh, in days of Shloimeh HaMelech, they didn't accept converts. Eimekabin gave him Why? The reason is because in the days of Shloimeh, the Jewish people were on top of the world. Everyone, the whole world looked up to the Jewish nation. All the nations came to visit what's going on in Yerushalayim. What does Yerushalayim look like? What is Shlomo HaMelech saying? What was the less saying? What was the less sicha? So under those circumstances, Eimekabin gave it. It's very bright, and it's very comfortable. So why not? Of course. It's so beautiful. It's wonderful. Therefore, if it's beautiful and wonderful, you can't tell that there is not a hidden worm someplace hiding beneath the surface, that on the dirt, that a little later it'll come out and it'll become an internal, a rotting apple inside, rotting from inside. It looks beautiful outside, but inside it's rotten. If it's rotten inside, why did he choose to become a ger? It's so beautiful, it's so wonderful. So that this illustrates a very simple principle, that when a light comes from light, and it's a bright and pleasant light, there's no challenge as to get to the light, then you don't know how deep that light goes and how truly you are relating to this light. When the light comes from the darkness, which means there's a challenge, like Yosef was in Mitzrayim, and Ephraim and Menachem were born in Mitzrayim, and yet they were able to recognize within the Mitzrayim, within this Egyptian life of those days, what the truth is. And they recognize it to the extent that Yaakov could readily accept him as one of his sons. They're not strangers. They are one of my sons. Those are the sons that I want, Yaakov said. Those are my sons. Basically, this is Menachem and Ephraim. Within Menachem and Ephraim themselves, between the two of them, there are these two elements. There is clearly, we have to understand, the ability to withstand the pressures and the distractions and the allurement is the enticement, the Yetzer Hara, the attractions of Mitzrayim. You need a very profound recognition, deep recognition and deep connection to the godly truth. Therefore, this shows the power of the Jewish soul, where he knows the truth even though the entire surrounding is telling him something else. It's a phenomenal thing. The entire surrounding is saying completely something different. I want to interject here a phenomenon very well known to everyone, but we have to think of it from time to time. The Jewish people, we all, anyone who today knows that he is Jewish, his ancestors have gone through 3,500 years, and the last 2,000 years of enormous challenge, enormous suffering, enormous difficulty, where wherever they turned, there was rampant hate for no reason whatsoever. You heard of anti-Semitism, right? What's anti-Semitism? Is there any rationale to it? There's nothing to it. The Jewish people, wherever they lived, whatever country they sent it, they benefited the country. They served the nation. In every which way. An interesting phenomenon in our history. Just want to give you a little bit of a perspective. During the feudal years, I don't know if you know what the feudal years. During the years where the Pritzim, the counts, every count had his little county. Maybe that's where the word county comes from. And they actually were rulers, absolute rulers in this little county. And all the people in the county belonged to them. They were their serfs. Every count, especially in Poland and Russia, had a moshke. Who was a moshke?
And he had mashke.
Not a mashke, a moshke.
Yeah, but he had mashke.
He had mashke. What is a moshke? A moshke, he called a Jew, a Yid, a moshke, because a Yid, he triumphs with Moshe Rabbeinu. He lives Moshe Rabbeinu's Torah. He called him a moshke. Why did he need this moshke? Now listen to this. This moshke, he recognized that this moshke is the smartest man around. He needs him to direct his estate. Without his advice, his estate is going to go down the drain. So he had this moshke who ran his estate and brought him all kinds of blessing and success. And when this count wanted to enjoy himself and entertain his friends, with wine and whiskey, what did he do? How do you entertain your friends? You bring the moshke, put on him the hide of a wolf, and let him dance for us. This same moshke, who was the mainstay of his estate, was also the source of ridicule for the enjoyment of all present. So even they stood up, they did their service, honestly. At the same time, they were constantly suffering. This did not dissuade him. This did not destroy their neshama. Did not destroy their spirit. Did not give him a thought and saying, hey, maybe, who knows, what's good about being Jewish? One of the biggest problems that Ayid had was, what do I do? Where do I send my children for chinuch? How do I get a teacher? Because these moshkes, how did they live? Actually, they used to hire teachers that lived in their house. And these teachers used to come and stay with them a half a year between Rosh Hashanah and Pesach. Then they would go home. They'd come back after Pesach and Sukkot. This was a standard way to give these children chinuch. And they lived one in a whole area, and they survived. They built and they maintained the Jewish people. This kind of strength really literally comes as a result of the challenge, where you test, so to speak, you test the very innermost elements of the neshama. And then there are two ways that this reflects itself. And this is what Ephraim and Menashe stands for. Menashe stands for the fact that this is not going to change my way. I'm going to be able to maintain my stand, and I'm not going to drown. Ephraim goes a step further. Ephraim, he was fruitful and multiplied within that suffering. In other words, he brought out an element of a godly element that came from as a result of being in Mitzrayim, that he would not have had if he wasn't in Mitzrayim. This is what Yosef and Yankiv, this is where the differences were. Yosef said, Menashe, this is the Bechor, and Yankiv said, yes, Menashe is very great, but the real thing is Ephraim. The real thing is Ephraim. Why? Because ultimately there is godliness concealed and hidden in everything in the world. And our challenge is to identify and to reveal that godliness that is really contained in everything in the world. And this is what Ephraim is. This is very briefly that, this is the Rebbe's explanation, of this particular phenomenon. Now, I want to translate this and reflect on our own situation, on ourselves. which is ultimately the most important part of all learning. Everything that a person learns, particularly Chassidus, requires that he should find himself in what he's learning. Sorry?
When we said how by Shlomo Milton was like light, and therefore here we didn't let them convert. I'm trying to understand how that relates to just light without having the Yisra and the spatial.
Oh, no. There was light, and the light was not challenged. And therefore, if a ger comes to be misguided, you don't know. You can't help for sure that he really is there with his whole mishon, with his whole heart. Excuse me. In the nimshal it is that when the person, we're going to talk about the nimshal in general, in Mitzrayim, where there is spiritual darkness, and Menachem, and then on top of it Ephraim, were able not only to withstand the darkness and keep to their truth, but more they actually were able to transform, take from the elements of Mitzrayim and bring out light from that. That is where you see the power of the Mishal.
How do we look at light coming from light again? Like the soul, you don't cover the depth of the truth. You don't relate to it.
No, you relate to it, but it doesn't. But it does not prove that it's really touching you to the very core, because it's pleasant. We will now discuss how this pertains to us, and you will see clearly where this is, you know. In our day, in today's age, there is a very strong challenge to Torah. Even though Torah is rampant, everybody learns Torah. And everybody recognizes Torah is really a tremendous thing, it's a tremendous guide in life. And it really talks the truth and so forth. Then at the same time, there is a worldly view of what the world is, what life is, what they call scientific view. And scientific view is very difficult to challenge because it's science, it's proven, it's really something which is empirically, objectively proven. It's very difficult to kind of to deal with this. So while I like Torah and so forth, but there is an element. There's an element that sets in under these circumstances, where I like Torah because this is really the best way to live. But to say that this is the only truth there is, and this is the only way to understand the world, it's hard for me to say that. There's other ways to understand the world. That is the challenge of our day. This was an alert to remind me to daven Menachem, Ma'ariv actually. Smart guy, right?
Smartphone.
It is important. I'd like you to be with me on this. When you learn Gemara, we learn Chassidus, and we understand what it says. And then we say, oh, wait a second. There's another view. There's another view. The other view is also valid. But I prefer this one. It's more pleasant. This is where I belong, and so forth. That is, at best, the union of Menachem. You hold on to yours. The challenge is that you have to be Ephraim. You have to take the whole challenge and recognize the truth, the absolute truth, the way the Torah sees things. Not to have two views, but I prefer one over the other. I'll give you an example. Very simple thing. Which one rotates around what? Does the sun rotate around the earth, or the earth rotates around the sun? Or the earth rotates around its own axis? Anybody know anything about this?
The world spins around itself and the sun goes around it.
I say that they both revolve around each other.
And scientists say, true scientists say they don't, can't know.
Just make up anything you like, they can prove it.
Okay. I want to explain to you a very important principle in this. You're absolutely right. Like the Rabbi says, really, a true scientist, like you said, truly, the most advanced, those who can stick to the most advanced view, say there's no way you can ascertain this. And yet, if you cannot ascertain, the Gemara says that the sun revolves around the earth. What is the significance of that? If you cannot ascertain, so what is the meaning of saying that the sun revolves around the earth?
Now we know the answer.
What?
The sun revolves around the earth, and that's what the Gemara says.
Right. And what is the meaning of that?
Hashem revealed it the way the world works.
No. Please, this is not guessing. I want to get to a point. I'm not studying astronomy right now. I want to explain to you something. So from this we can see what the Torah view is, and how we have to see to it that the Torah view permeates every last element of our lives, even the physical world. Not just how we behave, but the physical world itself. Okay, if you bear with me, I'll take you a little bit. It'll be a little challenging, but you're smart guys, right? You're smart?
Good question.
You're going to try to understand what I'm saying?
Try.
Going to try? Try very hard. There are two ways that we can view the world. The Torah view and the world view are two opposite ways. What are the opposite ways? The world view is that the world fends for itself. You know what that means? It takes care of itself. Everything happens from within the world itself. Like for instance, the earth needs light, needs day and night. So what happens? So the earth rotates around its axis. And the sun is right here shining. So the earth says, okay, I'm going to benefit from the sunlight by rotating. How the earth becomes so smart to rotate, that's we don't know. But
evolutionary.
right, some ways that's right. Okay? So therefore, and so from the physical perspective, please understand, from the physical perspective, this is the simplest way to explain the phenomenon. There's no question about it. Right? Simplest way. Every 24 hours, the earth rotates around its axis. Huh? Electricity. And it has day and night, day and night, day and night. Right? From that perspective, I mean, there's much to speak about. I just want to analyze this with you. Please bear with me. From that perspective, the whole phenomenon of day and night has no significance except for the fact that the earth gets warmed and cold, light and dark. But it's something which is, you can even put it into the category of an accident. It happened to be that the sun is in this and the earth is within the reach of the sunlight, and the earth somehow started rotating, and it continues to rotate. And that's how we have day and night. We view the entire existence from a different perspective completely. We view the entire existence from the perspective that this is a godly creation. God created the earth, and He created the sun, He created the entire cosmos. And He created day and night. Day and night is not an accident. We have day and night not because sometimes the earth faces the sun, sometimes it doesn't. We have day and night because God created day and night. Therefore, if there is a rotation of the, either the earth or the sun to create day and night, this is an interesting thing the Rabbi says in the letter. The Rabbi says, if the purpose of the sun is to give light to the earth, which means the earth is the master and the sun is a servant. Right? What is the logical, please follow this, what is the logical way that this relation should be? Should the master rotate around the servant, or the servant around the master? The servant around the master. It makes sense to us, from a Torah perspective, to say that the sun rotates around the earth simply by recognizing that the sun is the servant and the earth is the master. We don't need any further explanations. Because, there's a story, I think I mentioned to you. If I didn't, I'll mention it now. When they were going up to the moon, in the 60s, there was the whole process, they decided they're going up to the moon. So, of course, people very, wonder, go up to the moon. Maybe today you don't realize how far-fetched this is. But in those days, it was such a fantastic thought. So they asked the Rebbe whether there is any objection from the Torah, from a Torah perspective, in this attempt to go up to the moon. After all, the moon belongs to the sky. So the Rebbe says no. From a Torah perspective, there are no objections. You can investigate and study anything you want.
Not like a way to resort it and stuff like that?
That's something else. But it's not, they didn't ask him if it's advisable or not. He asked him whether it's allowed. He says
No,
it's no prohibition.
Allow
No.
1 to 1, but according to another aspect, which may not be allowed.
Okay, so no prohibition. So then they asked, does the Rebbe think that they will succeed in getting there? The Rebbe said, it's not out of the question, they may very well succeed. But they'll be disappointed what they find there. Huh?
So what are they disappointed
What did they think they were going to find there?
Monsters and that stuff. They're
It's like
thinking
a nice
about.
trail.
No, okay, so I'll explain to you what the implication of the Rebbe's answer is.
Never mind.
Excuse me?
Never mind. Forget the question.
No, I was going to explain it. What is the implication of this? The disappointed they find there. We have to understand the sun and the moon and the stars are extremely significant. What is their significance? Their significance is to the extent that they serve the earth. The moon is wonderful. It has a lunar cycle. It has a month, and it gets born, and then it develops to mid-month, and then it starts going down. It's a whole cycle, very significant. That whole cycle, the moon itself is not even involved in this. This is, what you see. Because this is all only in the terms of what the moon provides for the earth. The Eibishter wanted that on the earth there should be day and night. There is weeks, there's months, there is years. And then there is a bigger cycle. There is the 19-year cycle, there's a 28-year cycle. That provides a full cycle of time. And the moon and the sun, they're all instrumental in creating this, the mazoloids, the various stars that rotate the earth. This is all very significant. But their significance is exclusively because of their service of how they affect the earth. What's so special about the earth?
It looks cool.
The special thing about the earth is that the earth, as the Pasuk says, "Anochi sisi oretz v'odam olah barasi." The earth has the human being. The earth has a Jew. The earth has a Torah. The earth, this little earth, and this little nation within the earth carries the banner. What was the creation all about? And thus the entire cosmos, this zillions of stars, and the huge sun. The sun is really a huge body, millions of miles across. Can you imagine that? And it is millions of miles away. It is 90 plus million miles away from the earth. And it's powerful. Its light reaches us to the extent that we can't even tolerate it. 93 million miles away. You can imagine the power of the sun. And then beyond that, I mention this, that one of the most blatant miracles that everyone can observe is the phenomenon of the sun producing this infinite light, which consists of an enormous amount of energy, beyond anything that we can measure. And it does not reduce of its power at all. Doesn't make any sense. If something burns, it has to burn down. And here the sun is producing this energy. Over thousands of years, no effect. Because it's not the sun giving the light. The Rebbe said this sun should give light to the earth, and it's maintained in its original status, and it continues to give light. However that happens, this is the Meibusher's thing. So here is a very important factor. Like we said before, we come into the physical world. We come into the physical world, and we see how everything runs, so to speak, on the physical level. And it lends itself to be explained physically. The earth rotates around its axis, and the sun is there, and therefore there's day and night. And it's entirely contained within a worldly context. Comes Ephraim, who says, wait a second, that's not what happens. This phenomenon of the sun making day and night, that itself reveals a godly presence in the world. That physical phenomenon is actually revealing a godly presence in the world. It's revealing a godly miracle in the world. Contrary to what it may appear, that this is entirely natural and it's all accidental, and it conceals the godly element in the world. So we say just the opposite. Not only it doesn't conceal, but it reveals. And it gives us an actual perspective. That day in, day out, we experience the godly presence in the world. This is the challenge of that we are withstanding, that we are working with in our world. This is the challenge that we're working with in our day. This is the challenge that each one of us, we're sitting here and learning, and we have to learn and understand a Toisve, a Gemara, a Toisve, a Chassidus, and we have all kinds of different views that can be saying, wait, that's what you say, that's what you say. But this philosopher says something different, this scientist says something different, and I read something different. How do you reconcile? That's a challenge. We have to reconcile. Not only reconcile, but show how from that darkness comes a completely different light. Without this challenge, we would say, oh, I believe that Rabbi created the world. Okay. But this is much more than that. Not I believe it. I see God's hand in everything. It's right there in front of me. It's a completely different reality. This is a challenge that we all have to live up to. Whatever challenges we have, whatever difficulties we have, we're trying to understand them, to relate, and to actually, so to speak, get a sense, get a feel of Torah. The reason that it's challenging is because Mitzrayim is all around us. And Mitzrayim is constantly bombarding us, forget about this, this is the reality, this is the reality. And by withstanding that challenge, not only do we stand up firm, but we actually draw benefit from the challenge.
Isn't there someone converting Mitzrayim to something holy instead of just like walking there and like instead of committing?
We do. That's what the Torah mitzvahs in the gay exile is all about. I want to tell you a little story that I remember. He told me a Rav that I once knew many years ago. He's not here anymore. There are, hundreds of these type of stories, but it's something that just came to my mind. Something that he was a fine gentleman, a Rav that I knew quite well. He was a fine Elachadid. So he tells me the following story. He was a young Rav, someplace in the Midwest. And in those days, if today Yiddishkeit is centered in New York and it's much less elsewhere, but there is Yiddishkeit. You can have kosher food any place in the country almost. You can have a mikveh wherever you need, and chidduch for children almost everywhere. But in those days, this was a real challenge. So where he lived, there was no cheder at all. So there was a school, an appropriate school for his children, a couple of hours drive from his home. I don't remember exactly how long, but it's a drive. You can imagine. And now they're back and forth, and then picking him up again. And then in addition, he's a rov. He's got work to do. It was, but what choice do you have? So he would drive. I don't remember. It was an enormous drive. He would drive daily in and out, in and out. First, it started just with his children. And then there were other children, other members of the community that he convinced them that if he is going to take them, they'll let him go. They're not prepared to make the trip themselves. He'll take them. Yeah, he'll take them. Here's the road. Anyway, it went on for a while. And it drained his strength. As time going on, it became more and more difficult. And he tells me, he says, one time, I drove the kids to the school. And after I deposited the kids in the school, I fainted. Poshet fainted from exhaustion. And he says, when I came to, I knew that I broke it through. I broke this challenge. I broke this wall. And and that's what happened. Soon after that, there was a carpool. Other people started participating in the drive, and it was a manageable challenge. It was a manageable challenge. Not only did he provide education for his own children, but as a result of that, it became a broader interest. So other kids also benefited, and other people also participated. And if I remember correctly, eventually he was able to have enough children to make a cheder in his own community. That I don't remember exactly. That's it. But in any case, the point that he felt after that low level, that low ebb, he felt, that's it, this is the breakthrough. And the breakthrough was not only that he was able to accomplish what he needs to accomplish, it was a complete reversal. Complete reversal. Other people also benefited from this challenge and so forth. I want you to understand, you have to understand, we have to understand that every challenge that we have, personal or otherwise, contains within it a potential of a godly revelation, of godly power. We just have to stick to it and look for it, and we will find it. And that is what we are here in Yeshua for. To become real generals, right? Who said general? You said general, right? And then you come out and you lead and you lead others. That's what this is all about. Maybe we should all be Menachem's and Ephraim's, and the Rebbe should help them. Ultimately, we should all see the Geulah Shleim.
Amen.
Thank you. You inspired.
You gave it over?
Huh?
You gave it over.